Hey everyone! Welcome to my channel. My name is Jackie, and today I'm going to teach you how to make this beautiful 3-strand bracelet using the beads from the Sweater Weather collection by Bargain Bead Box. Here's what we'll need to complete our project. We're going to need beads from the Sweater Weather collection. We're going to need a lobster claw clasp. We're going to need some jump rings. We're going to need some crimp beads, some crimp covers, and of course some tiger tail wire. And then the tools we're going to need are a pair of pliers. We'll need some wire cutters and a standard size crimp tool. So let's get started. All right, I moved my beads out of the way, and the first thing we're going to work on is the clasp assembly. Now this is pretty easy. So I'm going to grab a jump ring, and we've got the chandelier link here. So in the top of it, I'm going to put a jump ring, and I'm going to put the lobster claw clasp. And then I'm going to squeeze it shut. All right, that's perfect. And then I'm going to grab another jump ring. I'm going to put that in the top of the other chandelier link. I'm going to close that. And as easy as that, we have a closure. And next, we're going to work on the bracelet strands. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set this down this way. And what I want to do is measure exactly how long this is. So let me grab my ruler, and we've got about 2.5 inches. Now I like a 7.5 inch bracelet. So 7.5 minus 2.5 is going to be 5 inches. So my bead strands are basically going to be 5 inches. This is a handy measuring tip for you. So you don't, build your bracelet and find that it's 3 inches too long. And let's start the next part of the bracelet. Okay, for the bracelet, you can use whichever beads you like. I'm going to use some bronze seed beads. I have this wonderful matte bronze. It's called Soft Bronze Metallic by Preciosa. I'm going to put those here. And I'm going to start with the center row. The first thing I'm going to do is separate these two, and I'm going to put one on each side. The reason we start on the center row is because that determines the length of beads that you need. So depending on your wrist size, minus the 2.5. That's going to be this measurement from here to here. So I cut a length of wire. I'm going to use the colored beads from the kit. I think these airy amazing. They look so good together and such a fun mix. Because I'm using jump rings and crimp beads, my total length is going to be 5 inches. So I'm going to put about 4.5 inches of beads on. The first thing I'm going to do is grab a crimp cover. I'm going to open it up. Put my wire through it. And then I'm going to grab a tiny little crimp tube and thread my wire through it. No, it doesn't really matter what color it is, because it's going to be hidden by the cover. Anyway, I'm going to turn my wire back up just a little ways. And I'm going to hold that part with my thumb, and I'm going to pull down. Just like that. Okay, then I'm going to hold onto the crimp bead and tighten it up this way. Just so that wire's nice and tight. And I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to smash it. Perfect. I'm going to touse my crimp pliers, and I will go ahead and crimp it on one side. Really good. And then I'm just going to close it, round it out, and I'm going to trim my wire really close, but not exactly to the crimp bead. Next, I'll slide up the crimp cover and close it with my fingers. Then I'll take my pliers and bring it together like this, just to make sure that my holes line up. Alright, all I have left to do now is string on my beads, and I'm gonna put them on randomly, just whatever goes on the best. Since my bracelet is going to be 7.5 inches, I'm going to allow a 1/2 inch for the crimp covers and the jump rings on each side. So that will make it 4.5 inches long. Okay, I'll meet you back here as soon as I'm finished with this strand. Alright, I've got 4.5 inches of beads strung on, and now I'm gonna go ahead and put on a crimp cover and a crimp bead on this end. So I'm just going to put them on here. I cut plenty of extra wire just so I still have wire to work with. So I'm going to thread back up through my crimp bead. Pull it down and tighten. Now you can bend the strand a little bit and leave yourself a little bit of playroom. That way your bracelet won't be too tight, you know? It's always good to give it just a little bit of room to breathe. Okay, so I'll squeeze my crimp bead now. I tell you what, these little beads are so much fun to work with. I don't know why I'm so attracted to them. The colors are neat and the different shapes, it's just fun. Okay, so working on rounding out my crimp bead. I got it. And I'm gonna go ahead and trim my wire. Set that aside and close my crimp cover. Now I'm going to grab a jump ring. Oops, I guess that one didn't want to go on. Okay, so I'm going to insert my jump ring and we're going into the center of the chandelier. Alright, so I'm going through that center hole and I'm going to snap it shut. That's why they're called jump rings. Okay, perfect. And we're going to do the same for the other end. Okay, that looks gorgeous. How fun are those? So the second round, I'm going to use the textured agate and grab a few scoops of those. Okay, and we're going to start again by adding a crimp bead cover. Open it up gently and thread through. I'm going to toad my crimp bead. Sometimes it's hard to grab a hold of the crimp beads. Just pick it up with your pliers, line it up straight, and then stick your wire through it. Let's see if we can find that hole. Okay, now I've got it. Alright, I'm going to loop it back around, so I need to hold on to it in order to do that. Not always easy, but we try. Okay, now I got it. I'm going to grab this and hold it with that finger and pull. I'm pulling it nice and tight. It's where you can use your nails as a tool if you need to. Okay, squeeze, go ahead and crimp that puppy and round her out. Looks good to me. I'm going to trim closely and close the crimp cover. And it also helps to go sideways sometimes. If your holes aren't quite lining up, do it very gently, but it's the easiest way to line them up. When you look at your chandeliers, you're going to notice that the inside and the outside are a little bit higher. So I would compensate by adding maybe 1 or 2 beads to each side, just so it lines up correctly. Otherwise, it's going to be all wonky. Your bead cover is going to be about here, so I'd say that's at least 1 bead more than what you had on each side. Depending on the beads you are using, just gauge the fit. Alright, next, I'm going to start with a seed bead, then I'm going to add the agate. Then I'm going to add another seed bead, and I'm going to keep going until I have it the right length. And as soon as I get done, I'll show you what it looks like when it's the right length. Okay, so I'll be back when I'm finished with this strand. Alright. I finished putting on my beads, and when I pull this nice and tight and line these up, looks like that'll fit perfectly once I get the crimp bead cover on. So really nice. I'm going to go ahead and put the crimp bead on to finish off the strand. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, on the last row, I'm going to use the blue beads. I'll go ahead and scoop out some blue beads. I'm going to put these away, I don't need those anymore. I really like these beads. I think they'll go nicely with denim. As before, I'll do my crimp first and then add a seed bead, then a blue bead, then a seed bead, same way I did with the agate strand, and just make it long enough to fit on this side. I'll go ahead and finish this strand. Then I'll show you what the bracelet looks like when it is finished. And there we have it, all done. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave your comments down below. Make creativity be your guide.